Here with Jeff Schmidt of BT. Tell us, what's the major theme that you're hitting on here today at the show?
So we're really thinking about rethink the risk from a security perspective, and organizations, as we look at cloud security, we look at bring your own device and consumerization of IT, is getting organizations to think about attacking or approaching security in the enterprise differently.
Now, we had a little breakfast this morning together, and you were discussing some of the more interesting findings from a BYOD survey, a global survey that you had done. One of the more intriguing findings that I found was that it's not necessarily the case that BYOD saves organizations money. So I'm wondering, in what cases does it save money, and where is it costing some organizations money?
So I think it comes down to, when you look at a variation of organizations approaching BYOD today, the thought process would be is how do you maximize efficiency and drive the productivity that's expected out of this without overwhelming an IT group from a support perspective. So where we saw efficiencies were in organizations that were approaching BYOD in a structured fashion. In some cases were maybe not as developed, where other organizations that had quite a bit of advancement in BYOD were actually spending more. And attribute that probably to, as out of the gate first, you're probably going to spend a lot more money because your process and policies are being built in motion, versus organizations that tend to have less spend or are experiencing less spend are not allowing, they've got a process or a policy, or at least some controls put over it. So things that you really want to look out for, I think, when you talk about it, is you can't support everything. And if you try to, I think that you've got some issues around the help desk and the support channels, being able to understand how to help the end users and make it work right. So your IT costs are going to go up, and I think you want to start with a framework that best suits your environment, give some choice and some capabilities, but try and control that based on good resilience and good practices within the environment.
You're finding, I guess maybe even anecdotally, that it's the case that people don't know which IT or who to call when they need help if they're using their own devices?
It definitely can get complicated. So, if the device isn't working, is it a network issue? Especially if we're talking on the data side. So is it a connectivity issue? Is it a Wi-Fi issue? Do I have policies in the cloud that are controlling the filtering aspects of where I can go to, down to the level of applications that are sitting on the phone and what they have to access?
You had also mentioned earlier today that BYOD has sort of set us back about 10 years when it comes to network security. I was wondering if you would explain for our viewers out there what you meant by that.
So I got to be careful with that comment. So I think really is when we looked at the statistics that were out there, it was about 74% of the representative example, which was about 2,000 people across 11 countries. We're looking at security in general. Some of their biggest fears are around antivirus, malware, et cetera. So we're chasing a market with consumerization. So the platforms themselves, because they're owned by individuals, because they're not necessarily an attack vector on the grand scheme, at least in the news and media, as much as traditional IT infrastructure has been, we're trying to catch up. And policies and what gets put on the standard footprint or the standard images is now developing as we move along. And so you see what's happening is IT is catching up to the consumer side of it and trying to make sure that the blend for a bring your own device or personal device use in the environment has the right appropriate controls to protect the business while also enabling the end user.
And you also mentioned that there's 5 generations of workers in the workforce today. Is there generational differences in attitudes towards BYOD that you're finding from the survey?
So I think we see generational differences almost everywhere. And so if you take your daily lives and you look at our parents, our children, and how they act and interact, the questions that they ask, those generations deem a different way of viewing the world and what they can and can't do. A lot of it based on familiarity with the tools and the accessibility we've given them. A lot of my kids, most of my kids, I have 3, so and the 2 younger ones will never know a world really without being tethered to an internet or having always online access. And so their question base is much more generated to why. versus my generation that tends to be as those are the rules and we follow the rule sets. So I think we have some complexity to deal with, but I think that we can find a blend with the right type of education and pieces sitting around it.
There's also some interesting regional differences in BYOD policies. You care to elaborate on those for our audience?
So we saw when you took a global view, some markets we saw India and China much more advanced in the bring your own device strategy and allowing their users to move forward, at least by IT numbers. Where you had a European market that was, I'm not going to say slower, but was probably more cautious in their approach to the bring your own device. And I'd probably say some of that comes from an ICT strategy of where the industry and where the economies are growing and where maybe ICT is more aged. So those policies that exist today have to be developed and brought into view with the current policies that are out there. Where you have probably newer economic and newer ICT strategies, those tend to be a little bit more flexible and have actually moved faster.
If we could talk specifically about the show here today, how are you finding the show so far?
So I haven't had a lot of time to walk around, but I have went up and down some of the aisles, and you can look around. It's all about security, and obviously I think there's some themes that we're starting to see, which interesting enough is I think most people are approaching this as there isn't a silver bullet in what we're doing. You've got to really look at the business environments and what the needs are, and think about security as a think prospect versus applying a patch to it. And that we know consumerization of IT, which tends to be a theme here as well. It's not coming; it's here, and we need to get in front of it.
BT has quite an impressive booth back there, don't they?
Yeah, we brought the double wide, which is probably a U.S. term, but yeah, we've got 7 demos going on right now, and we're going through ethical hacking to Saturn, which is looking at big data from a visual analytics perspective, which we believe helps companies get there faster. And an area that isn't necessarily new, but we put it on stage in front of us is our telephony, our telecom services wrapped around the telephony side and the PBX on the traditional IT side to look at some of the attacks and attack vectors that are coming from there. And then bringing it all together with our Assure Cyber portfolio, which allows companies really from a prospecting perspective is look at how security is implemented to match their risk appetite.
Now I know you're here and BT's here as an exhibitor, so you're obviously making some contacts, perhaps catching up with customers and making new ones. But you plan on taking part in any of the educational program, and you trying to take away anything from the show here this week?
So I think these are always great. So absolutely, in the educational aspect, one, just being with your customers and being with people in the industry, looking for resolution or at least a path, is always good. And so for me, I think it's a better understanding of making sure our solutions are taking into account the struggles or the roadmaps that our customers are trying to move towards.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for taking a few moments to sit down with me and discuss your survey findings and giving me your thoughts on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Drew, and thanks for your time this morning as well. Thank you.